The video call notification came at 3 a.m. California time. My sister Rachel calling from Greece. Natalie, you need to see this. Her face filled the screen, beach sunset behind her. Mom's birthday party is insane. They're literally auctioning off the villa. People are writing checks. I sat up in bed, fully awake. What villa? Your villa. The one in Santorini. Dad's giving a whole presentation about selling the family property to fund their retirement travels. There's like 40 people here. My villa. The 6-bedroom Mediterranean estate perched on the Caldera Cliffs. Ocean views, infinity pool, private beach access. I'd purchased it 3 years ago through my offshore real estate trust for 2.8 million euros. Current market value, 4.2 million euros. My family thought it belonged to my parents. At 32, I was a senior acquisitions director at Blackstone Real Estate Partners. My specialty: international luxury property portfolios for ultra-high net worth clients. My annual compensation with bonuses, $850,000. My personal real estate holdings across 4 countries, $12 million. My family thought I was a property assistant who helped rich people find houses. Rachel, are they actually collecting money? I asked. Dad has a whole bidding system. Highest bidder gets first right to purchase. He's already collected like $200,000 in deposits. He says the villa's worth $3 million and they're selling it below market as a family favor to their friends. $3 million. They were undervaluing my 4.2 million euro property and pocketing deposits from their friends. Send me everything. Photos, videos, names of everyone who paid deposits. Natalie, what's happening? Do Mom and Dad actually own the villa? No. I do. Through a Gibraltar-based real estate trust. They've been staying there as my guests for 2 years. Rachel's eyes went wide. Oh my God. Send me everything. No. I need to make calls. I hung up and immediately dialed my international property attorney. Martin Chin was based in London and specialized in cross-border real estate fraud. His retainer alone was $50,000 annually. Martin, I need you in Santorini. Today. My family is auctioning off my villa and collecting deposits from buyers. I need this stopped before they actually transfer any property rights they don't have. How much have they collected? His voice was alert despite the hour. At least $200,000 so far, according to my sister. The party's still going. That's wire fraud if they're moving money internationally. Possibly real estate fraud. I'll contact local authorities and be on the next flight. Send me everything. Trust documents, purchase records, transfer receipts. Sending now. I spent the next 20 minutes forwarding documents. Property deed registered to Aegean Holdings Trust, Gibraltar. Trust beneficiary: Natalie Morrison. Trustee: Martin Chin. Purchase records showing 2.8 million euro wire transfer from my accounts. Property tax payments for 3 years. Insurance policies. Renovation receipts totaling 400,000 euros. My phone buzzed constantly. Rachel sending photos and videos from the party. Dad in a linen suit standing on my terrace presenting a slideshow. The Morrison family villa, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Mom pouring champagne for guests, laughing about finally cashing in on our Mediterranean dream. My brother Tyler, 29, showing couples through the bedrooms I'd decorated, promising the new owners can move in by October. I watched my family sell my house to their friends. At 6 a.m., I booked a flight to Athens connecting to Santorini. 18 hours of travel. Martin would arrive first. His London flight was much shorter. I texted Rachel, don't tell anyone I'm coming. Document everything. Save all receipts, deposit checks, anything financial. Are they in serious trouble? Yes. International real estate fraud. Possibly criminal charges. Holy shit, Natalie. My parents had been using the villa for 2 years. I'd purchased it as an investment property and offered them extended stays whenever they wanted. The owner is very flexible, I told them. They never questioned who the owner was. They assumed it was some corporation I worked for, that I had special access. They never asked. I never clarified. Now they were selling it. I showered, packed and drove to LAX. The entire flight I reviewed documents Martin sent. Greek property law. International fraud statutes. Interpol protocols for cross-border financial crimes. My family had committed fraud in multiple jurisdictions. If they'd successfully sold the villa and transferred funds internationally, they could face criminal charges in Greece, Gibraltar, and the United States. The deposits they'd collected, even without completing a sale, constituted fraud. They'd taken money for property they didn't own. I landed in Athens 16 hours later, caught the connecting flight to Santorini. Martin texted, "I'm at the villa. Your father is not pleased. I'll be there in 2 hours." The taxi wound through Santorini's narrow streets, climbing toward the caldera. My villa appeared on the cliff, white stone gleaming against blue sky. Cars filled the driveway. The party was apparently continuing into a second day. I paid the driver and walked toward my front door. Pulled up. Inside I found chaos. My parents, Tyler, and a dozen guests occupied my living room. Champagne bottles everywhere. Documents spread across my dining table. My mother's 65th birthday had apparently evolved into a multi-day real estate auction. "Natalie." Mom spotted me first. "Darling, what a surprise. You didn't say you were coming." Everyone turned. Dad's smile looked forced. Tyler went pale. "Surprise," I said evenly. "I heard you were having a party. At my house." "Your house." Dad laughed. "Honey, this is the family villa. We've been coming here for years. You've been staying here as my guests for 2 years. There's a difference." A tall man in an expensive suit stood from the corner. "Martin Chin." "Good afternoon, Ms. Morrison. Shall we proceed?" The room went quiet. "Everyone," Martin said professionally. "I'm Martin Chin, international property attorney representing Ms. Natalie Morrison. I'm here regarding the illegal auction and sale of property located at this address." "Illegal?" One of the guests, a woman in designer sunglasses, stood. "We paid deposits. Your father gave us a contract." "Any contracts are void," Martin said. "Mr. Morrison has no legal authority to sell this property because he doesn't own it." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "This is the property deed, registered in Gibraltar under Aegean Holdings Trust. Sole beneficiary, Natalie Morrison. Purchased 3 years ago for €2.8 million. Dad's face flushed. "That's impossible. This has been our family property." "This has been your daughter's property," Martin interrupted. "She purchased it in 2021 and generously allowed you to stay here as guests. You've now committed international real estate fraud by accepting deposits for property you don't own." Tyler stepped forward. "Natalie, come on. You can't seriously." "I can seriously," I said. "You collected deposits from how many people?" 15. 20. A man in a polo shirt spoke up. "We paid $15,000 each as good faith deposits. Your father said the full price was €2.5 million and he was giving friends first opportunity. €2.5 million for a property worth €4.2 million, I said. "Interesting pricing strategy for something you don't own." Martin laid out more documents. Purchase records. Wire transfers from Ms. Morrison's accounts. Property tax payments for 3 years. All paid by Ms. Morrison. Insurance policies. Renovation receipts totaling €400,000. All paid by Ms. Morrison. Mom sat down heavily. "Where did you get almost €3 million at age 29? "I'm a senior acquisitions director at Blackstone Real Estate Partners. I structure international property deals for clients with portfolios worth hundreds of millions. My base salary is $650,000. With bonuses, I exceed $850,000 annually. I've been there since I was 26. "You said you were a property assistant," Tyler protested. "You assumed I was a property assistant." "I said I worked in luxury real estate. You heard what you wanted." The woman in sunglasses was scrolling her phone. "The property records, she's right. Registered to Aegean Holdings Trust, Gibraltar. Owner, Natalie Morrison." "This can't be happening," Dad said. "We've been planning this for months. We told everyone." "You told everyone you were selling property you don't own," Martin said. "That's fraud. In multiple jurisdictions." He pulled out another document. "This is a formal cease and desist. All deposits must be returned immediately. Any contracts are void. Anyone who paid money should file a police report for fraud." "Police?" Mom gasped. You accepted approximately $200,000 in deposits for property you have no authority to sell, Martin explained. That's criminal fraud under Greek law and international financial crime statutes. A man in khakis stood abruptly. I want my money back. Now. Others echoed him. Voices rising. Anger redirecting from me to my parents. Everyone will receive their deposits back, I said clearly. My attorney will oversee the process. But understand, my parents committed fraud. They took your money for property that was never theirs. Dad's face had gone from flushed to ashen. Natalie, these are our friends. Our reputation. Your reputation as what? Fraudsters? That's accurate. Tyler stepped closer. You're really going to destroy Mom and Dad over a misunderstanding? A misunderstanding? You collected hundreds of thousands of dollars for my house. You showed people through my bedrooms. You promised them occupancy. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime. Martin checked his watch. I've already contacted local authorities. Officers should arrive shortly to take statements and collect evidence of the fraudulent transactions. Officers. Mom stood. Natalie, you can't be serious. This is your mother's birthday celebration. This is an international real estate fraud scheme, I corrected, that you conducted in my house without my knowledge or permission, targeting your own friends. Revelation. A woman I didn't recognize spoke up. Mrs. Morrison, you told us this was your family villa. That you and your husband had owned it for years and were selling to retire. That's what we thought, Mom said weakly. You thought wrong, I said. Just like you thought you could sell my property without consequences. Rachel appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. The police are outside. They're asking for Mr. and Mrs. Morrison. The room erupted. Guests grabbing bags and making excuses. The earlier celebratory atmosphere disintegrated into panic. 2 Greek police officers entered, followed by a third man in a suit, probably a financial crimes investigator. Martin handled introductions in fluent Greek, presenting documentation. The officers examined the property deed, the deposit receipts, the fraudulent sales contracts Dad had created. The lead officer turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, you're being detained for questioning regarding real estate fraud and obtaining money under false pretenses. Detained. Dad's voice cracked. We're American citizens. You can't. Greece has jurisdiction over crimes committed on Greek soil, the investigator said in accented English. You collected money for property you don't own. That's fraud regardless of your nationality. Mom started crying. Tyler looked like he might vomit. The guests who'd paid deposits were asked to stay for statements. The others fled quickly, embarrassed to be associated with the scandal. I watched my parents being questioned, surrounded by police. Their birthday celebration transformed into a criminal investigation scene. Martin pulled me aside. This is serious. The amounts involved, the cross-border element, the multiple victims, they're looking at potential criminal charges. Your parents could face prison time. What are my options? You could choose not to press charges. Ask the police to treat this as a civil matter. Basically force your parents to return all deposits and leave the property immediately. That would likely avoid criminal prosecution. And if I do press charges? Greek prosecution for fraud, possible Interpol involvement given the international financial transfers, extradition hearings if they flee to the US. It would be public, messy, and your parents would likely face jail time. I looked at my mother sobbing on my couch. My father trying to explain to police how this was all a family misunderstanding. Tyler sitting with his head in his hands. They'd stolen from their friends. They'd committed fraud in my name. They'd sold my property without a moment's hesitation. I want all deposits returned by tomorrow, I said. I want a formal written confession that they committed fraud. I want them off my property immediately and permanently banned from returning. I want the police report filed even if we don't pursue criminal charges. And I want every single person who paid a deposit to know exactly what happened, that my parents are fraudsters. Martin nodded. I'll arrange it. Resolution. The police agreed to my terms. My parents had 24 hours to return every deposit, which meant liquidating their savings and taking loans from Tyler. The alternative was immediate criminal charges and arrest. By midnight, the villa was empty except for Rachel, Martin, and me. I can't believe they actually did this, Rachel said. I knew they were planning something, but I thought it was just, I don't know, a timeshare pitch or something. They committed international fraud, I said. They weren't confused. They weren't mistaken. They created contracts, collected deposits, and planned to keep the money. Martin spent the next day coordinating deposit returns. Every guest received their money back along with a formal letter explaining that Mr. and Mrs. Morrison had fraudulently attempted to sell property they didn't own, and the actual owner, their daughter, had stopped the illegal sale. The humiliation was comprehensive and public. My parents were forced to leave Greece immediately. Their retirement villa fantasy ended with a police escort to the airport. Tyler called 3 days later. You destroyed them. They're humiliated. Everyone knows they're frauds. They are frauds, I said. They stole $200,000 from their friends using my property. What did you expect would happen? They thought the villa was family property. They thought wrong. And instead of asking me, they sold it to 20 people. Over the following weeks, the story spread through my parents' social circle. The Morrison retirement scandal. The couple who tried to sell their daughter's villa. The fraud that exploded at a birthday party. Dad's business reputation, he'd been a commercial real estate broker, was destroyed. Clients dropped him. His firm asked him to retire early to avoid association with the scandal. Mom's social standing evaporated. Friends stopped calling. Invitations dried up. Tyler had to loan them $50,000 to cover return deposits they'd already spent on a yacht they'd planned to buy with the fraudulent sale proceeds. Rachel called weekly with updates. Dad's depressed. Mom won't leave the house. They're saying you ruined their retirement. They ruined their own retirement, I said. They committed fraud. I hired a property management company in Santorini. The villa became a luxury rental, generating €15,000 per week during high season. My investment property was now producing substantial income, something my parents' fraudulent sale never would have achieved. Martin updated the trust documentation, adding explicit provisions that my family members were permanently banned from the property. 6 months later, my parents sent an email. Can we talk? We want to explain what happened. I replied, you committed international real estate fraud. You stole from your friends. You tried to sell my €4.2 million villa for €2.5 million and pocket the difference. There's nothing to explain. They didn't respond. A year passed. The villa appreciated to €4.6 million. My rental income exceeded €400,000 annually. I purchased a second property in Mykonos through a similar trust structure. Tyler sent one final text. You know what you are? Unforgiving. Family should forgive. I looked at the property records on my screen. 2 Mediterranean villas. Total value, €7.8 million. Annual income, €650,000. I texted back, family should not commit fraud. I'm not unforgiving. I'm just not a victim. Then I blocked his number. Sometimes I reviewed the police report from that day. The evidence photos of my parents collecting deposits. The fraudulent contracts they'd created. The guest list of people they'd stolen from. They'd assumed the villa was theirs to sell. They'd assumed I was too small, too unsuccessful, too unimportant to own something so valuable. The property deed told a different story. So did the trust documents. So did the €2.8 million wire transfer. My father spent 40 years in commercial real estate. He should have known to verify ownership before selling property. He didn't. And that assumption, that criminal assumption, cost him his reputation, his business, his retirement dreams, and his relationship with his daughter. The offshore holding documents didn't lie. His assumptions did. And in the end, those assumptions were far more expensive than the villa ever was.